In terms of signings that you mentioned there, I've said that, you know, to me, I wrote a piece on Substack about it. I'm very, very cautious about this summer for a couple of reasons. I think mainly it's very hard to gauge the true quality of this current squad because of the number of injuries we had last year. That's not to say that there aren't areas where you could upgrade, but you know, I do fear clutter, right? Like a bottleneck situation where you buy some players and then suddenly you're in a situation where, what if more players remain fit? And then suddenly you're in a situation where players' futures are kind of unknown and uncertain. So I don't want that. So I've kind of gone into this like, Tosin's a good start in terms of a Premier League level quality player. I want that type of profile who can quickly come in and impact things. So I know you mentioned him before. To me, Olise is like, I feel like, even though it doesn't make a lot of sense in terms of us buying all the left-footed right wingers in the world, I do like him as a player. I do think he would very quickly upgrade our attack.
Yeah, I definitely think so. And maybe this is why the club feel like he is someone that maybe we can't afford to miss out on. I think shame for Noni. I mean, not necessarily. I mean, I think Noni's the type of character that will look to level up and he'll like the challenge. And I think, to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if he found minutes at left wing, if that became a possibility for him to play. I mean, let's see, watch the space. But I just think that Olise, I think he'll be one of the top wingers in the world. I think he's already one of the top 5 wingers in the Premier League. I just think I don't know how to describe it, but like when I watched his season last season, it just felt like he just, I don't know how to describe it, but it felt like he just understood the essence of the game, if you know what I mean. But it's just like, every action is optimum. Every decision is optimum. Every shot on goal, like every dribble, every glide, it's like he's seeing the picture like 2 steps ahead, and he's playing at a very like effortless, easy pace. Obviously, Glasner giving him even more like freedom to roam and move. That plays a great trust on Olise, and he shine even more from that. And I just think that if you could add another Cole Palmer to the team, I think that's what you have to do sometimes if you want to challenge for the league. I think I was looking at points, and I think you know, City haven't always needed to win the league by getting 90 points plus. Normally it's high 80s, and our highest point total since we won the league under Conte with 93 points was under Tuchel with like 74. That's the highest we've had in like 8 years, and we've not even got past 70 points since. So it's a massive step up in points we need to collect. And I think when you add players like this to the team, where you know that you're adding a new threat from set pieces, which we have had, but now you're adding more of a specialist, where you're getting more guaranteed quality, right? You know, you're adding someone that's also a match winner. But most importantly, I think I can just envision him and Palmer interchanging, rotating, playing off each other, similar to what Eze and Olise did. And I think that's going to add even more dynamics and ingenuity when it comes to, you know, breaking down these teams that park the bus, right? Because that's been our main Achilles heel. Like, that's what stops us from doing anything. So I understand the need for that. And I think to myself, I get it. Obviously, with the game today, you need a strong 16-man squad now, realistically. It's not even about having 11 good players or like, you know, 14. You need like at least like 16 now to really compete and stay competitive from the first minute to the last. When you're adding on top things like added time, that's gone up, you know, so much more now. You're playing nearly 2 hours of football every week. So, you know, more is expected from you. And I do think adding an Olise, especially knowing how we had injuries and all these mistimed things that work against us, that is the right move to make. And yeah, if we just sign him and him alone, I think that would be a successful season, to be honest with you. So I think that's business that has to get done.
Yeah, I mean, it got so close, didn't it, last year? And I think the strange thing is, like, Palmer came so late, and he ended up turning out to be our most important player, which I don't think anyone saw coming. So Olise could have been in that position right now. Like, he could have been the Cole Palmer. I also do ponder, I feel like we've had conversations in this aspect before. Like, I think the reason I like players like Eze and Olise, especially Olise, is that I think when you're bringing in a coach who wants to play cynically, I think quite rigid positional play, I think you need attacking mavericks who are going to do things that a lot of players can't, are going to kind of break the mold. And, you know, for as much as people applaud Pep, I keep on saying this, like he does have the benefit of working with some extraordinary players that make his system and would make any system look good. And it's the same with Arteta, right? Like Bukayo Saka, you add on to that Gabriel Jesus, you add on to that Martin Odegaard, you know, you add on to that Declan Rice, you add players who level up and make that system look incredible. And I think that you add Olise, Palmer and Kunku all together, and you know, does it matter that you're passing the ball 1,000 times a game? Like those players, whether you're passing it 5 times a game, like that, those players are just so good that they will rise above whatever limitations that could be there. Facts.
And you know, just to even add to your point too, because I really agree with you. I think one thing that our team has lacked forever has been that player that commands attention from the opposition, where they're forced to place like 2 players on him, maybe even 3 sometimes, just to try and minimize his threat. And I feel like all the top teams tend to have players like that, and we have lacked that. And I think this is why maybe when it comes to breaking down these teams that are just like, you know, keeping their blocks low, we can be quite formulaic, we can be quite scripted in terms of how we move and how we play, because we don't have someone that can take that risk, that can unlock, that can do something, you know, create something from nothing, that can just, you know, run at an opponent and take 2 guys out the game. And I think that if you're adding that type of like 1v1 specialist, like Olise alongside a Palmer, and having Nkunku as that cream on top, that could be like an amazing, you know, option that can maybe help us maybe cope a lot better against these types of teams. So, you know, we desperately need those types of Mavericks. And then knowing that the following season, 05-06, when Estefan Willian and Kendrick Paez come, I think we could be set for a very long time, because I'm not expecting Kendrick or Willian to be showing any form till they're like at least 21, 22. So that's a good 3-4 years they can develop slowly behind the scenes, whilst we have Nkunku, Palmer, potentially Olise leading from the front, and maybe Mudryk if we stood even here, but I don't want to talk about that guy right now, to be honest. But yeah, I think you know, something exciting is brewing, but we can't be potential FC forever. When you have to start seeing results now next season, I think that's it.
Yeah, it's also like the reason I think you need to buy kind of close to ready-made players as possible is because of Maresca and because of the massive risk of him not having a lot of experience walking into an environment where, you know, I admit people like myself and others are doubtful over him as a coach. So I think you need people who are going to players who can very quickly elevate what he does. And, you know, because I think the worst thing for Maresca is you get to November and already we're kind of in a position like Poch was, where you get sections already kind of grumbling and being like, I'm not quite sure this is the guy. And like that, we know how that can snowball at a club like Chelsea, and he's going to be under immense pressure if things start to go wrong. So I feel like players like that also just give the fans a lot of hope and joy. Like that's why Palmer was such a revelation last season, is that you just enjoyed watching Palmer play. Like you knew no matter how bad things got, you always believed when Palmer was on the pitch that something could still happen. So I think Olise definitely fits that mold. Just on some other transfers, I know Jhon Duran from Aston Villa is the one being talked up at the moment. I think someone we mutually follow, Seb C, has been a big fan of him for many months. And to be honest, like firstly, just your reaction to it, because I know there is a lot of fear over the reported fee that Chelsea could be asked to pay to get him out of Villa.
I think they were saying something like 40 to 45 million, but then some reports were saying it could be 25. But that came from TalkSport, from doing my research, so I don't think anyone really knows right now. He's an interesting player. I mean, he's still very young. He's only just turned 20 years old. He's one of the youngest strikers in the league. And I think, listen, I thought maybe we'd go for someone a bit more established. Thinking, I've probably been gassed up for like over a year, thinking Osimhen was a guarantee to come, right? And then I guess missing out on CL football, not getting enough sales in, and obviously thinking, crap, are we going to like blow our wage budget for this guy? Probably not. But at the same time, I've had some time to ponder and think about how, the disappointment, I guess, of moving on from targets like Osimhen and Sechko to like a Jhon Duran. And now, after thinking about it for a bit, maybe I'm not like that disappointed now. Maybe this could be like a responsible type of decision, because realistically, I don't think we need any one of our players to become, the leading scorer in the league to win anything most times. I think our goal for next season, and I've spoke about this before, if we move on from Osimhen, is to spread the goals across the team. And I think if Nkunku, Palmer, Olise, Nico can come in with at least like 12 goals each, 15 goals each, that gives you a good framework to work with, knowing that defenders will chip in, midfield guys will come in, subs will come in to add to those goals, right? And you're hoping to get at least between like, I don't know, like 75 to like 90 goals a season to try and like potentially win something. So Jhon Duran comes in as a really interesting plan B, because he's a different profile to Nico. He's someone that is more of an advanced style aerial threat, which we lack. And I do think sometimes when managers make subs, you want to bring on a player that can offer something a little bit different. So if we had to play a bit more direct, play a bit long, you feel like Duran can come on and make something happen. And even though he didn't really start many games at Villa, that was the only thing that kind of worried me a little bit. You have to still consider that in a small sample size, the minutes that he got, he's ranking really high in terms of, percentiles, which reflects, his involvement as a sub, his impact nature, how he's offering that new threat, or, giving something to Aston Villa. And I think that is something we can maybe take advantage of, knowing that, okay, the winner in this, Nico Jackson, now has another season where he could potentially be our leading number one. And I think with one more season, if he could crack 20 goals throughout, we might decide maybe we don't have to spend so much money on signing a striker now, because we have other kids and talents coming through. I think we're set. I think we're ready. And then you have a Jhon Duran who's also developing behind the scenes. So, I've been thinking about it, and, it's life, right? You don't always get everything you want, but that doesn't mean that we still can't be successful. And I do think he could provide an interesting option, because not only is this guy very strong aerially, I mean, to be 20 years old and that good aerially, I think, yeah, you could work with that. Wow, this guy has this disgusting, the power he generates in his shots is just, I've not seen that since Hasselbank, to be honest with you. I mean, it's just unreal. And so, I mean, he's got so many raw like qualities in his game. Like, you think back up for 2 years, something could happen here. And if he comes for a good fee and price, knowing that his wages are nothing as well too, this could be like a pretty interesting buy. So, I'm not too opposed against it now.
Yeah, I think when I get away from the sort of elevated price of it, which I think, is what, in some ways, I think you expect it, because it's Chelsea and other clubs know they can get money out of Chelsea. And then also like Premier League minutes, they do put an inflated price on anyone, even if they aren't substantial. If I just look at the player from what I've seen of him, he just causes chaos. And he just causes problems to a lot of defenses and good defenses. The goal he scored against Man City was really impressive.
Really good.
One of the best defenses in European football, and he made them, look silly with that goal. That's hard to teach. That's not something that a lot of players can do. And then also obviously Liverpool, right? He came off the bench in that game as well, and he just looks like someone that is going to be awkward for opposing defenses to deal with. And I know it's a very basic thing, but you said it earlier, right? Chelsea can't be potential FC forever. And it's this is one of my problems with the players we've signed in recent years. Is a lot of it it's around theory actually rather than output. And I like giving Jackson another season, because I think he's done so well given the pressure he's been under and the criticism and the expectation. And I fear that we could be making a Tammy Abraham level mistake of like shifting him to the side too quickly when actually there's a developing striker there. But then also you do want to add more goals to the team, and you do want to add a profile that we haven't had, which of course physically we're not that imposing of a team. So I think that there are more pros than cons to this deal. And actually, I think I'm more comfortable spending on Duran than I am spending on Sesko or Osimhen. Because I've seen us spend big when everyone tells us to spend big and it not work out that much. And like, you got to think like, look at the two ways Rasmus Højlund and Nicholas Jackson played last year.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the problem for Højlund was that he came in with massive hype and sort of expectation behind him, as kind of like, this is the new guy for Man United. And actually Jackson went under the radar a bit. So I think Duran, despite maybe being a steeper price, no one's going to look at Duran and say, you're the saviour player. And I think that actually will help Chelsea, and I think will help the group.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. I think like the group will put their arms around him. I think this Latin culture we're building at the club is starting to make me feel like I have to start learning Spanish at this point, not going to lie, or Portuguese. So I think, and obviously he's coming to London, so I think, yeah, there's a million reasons why he wants this move. And I just, he's a character. I think he'll be, I think like a Diego Costa-ish type of character, a bit of like a madman. That could be interesting to have in the team. I was reading a few anecdotes of like Aston Villa players talking about him. So I think he could be like a pretty smart buy, especially we can buy him for the price we want. Because I don't see why we'd have to be forced to pay fees Villa want, when I think maybe we have a bit more leverage in this situation. If you could get him for a good price, I want to see tons of clauses inserted, because if you're signing potential, you're not giving guaranteed money away. You're giving future fees away. If he does this, if he does that, if he activates this. And I think if he was signed for 40, for example, I'm sure Villa would receive like 20 million of that, and the rest would just be clauses and, bonuses.
And it's always one of those things where it's like, if those clauses are activated, it's a good thing.
Exactly.
It's one of those, it's that money that you'd want to be paying because things have gone extremely well. It's a bit like the Mudryk deal, right? Like everyone kept on talking about I feel like every time Mudryk's fee gets talked about, it gets like another 20 million gets added to it. In like 2 years, it's going to be 500
exactly.
million. And it's like, but if they reach that level, if Chelsea end up paying the maximum to Shakhtar for Mudryk, it's because he's been an overwhelming success as a player. It's not a bad thing. It means that you as a club it's not. So I'd agree with you. There needs to be incentive in there, because again, there's not. Despite my, I like the idea of having a bit of a wild card in the squad. I like the idea of having a plan B that's different to what we have. I think you need that in a squad, and I think that the Conference League could be a great place for him to really get substantial minutes and develop, which is again such a great.
Yeah.
People keep on dismissing the Conference League. I think it's a great opportunity for Chelsea this year on a couple of factors. And I think one of them is developing raw players, right? Giving raw players actual minutes in European football. That's a unique thing to have. So
and we have the honour of winning every single European trophy that's been about. If this is like hopefully the final times we'll ever be in this tournament, we have to win it outright. Like, it just has to be done.
Yeah, you can't do an Arsenal where you get the lesser European competition, you still can't win it. Like you need to. Chelsea got to be hoovering up these competitions.
Yeah, easily hoovering it up.
So I think let's see if I'm pretty confident that Duran could get over the line, because also it's been something that's been talked about for a while. Like I remember in January there were links, weren't there, as well. So it kind of feels like something that is picking up speed.